Welcome back, Fright Night friends, to Scary Movie Fright Night. Today, we're talking about Cabin in the Woods.
Cabin in the Woods. That's all I have to say about it. This is
Scary Movie Fright Night, a new podcast about two guys who just watch scary movies. I'm Chris, and I love scary movies.
And I'm Sam, and I hate scary movies. My body just shook. Give me the heebie-jeebies. No, don't. All you have to do is stay inside in your bed, and then you won't get murdered.
Oh.
Okay. And now you have that recorded.
All right, here we go. Second scary movie that Sam's watched, or at least in cahoots with me. Cabin in the Woods. You know, last time we watched a thinker of a movie with Candyman, and Sam loved it, and we started off strong, and then we went to a nice, a nice modern classic weird movie. I'm not going to give too many opinions right off the bat.
Yeah.
But we watched Cabin in the Woods. You know, the origin story of Thor. No hammer. So
he was not worthy in this movie, unfortunately.
he was not worthy
of a hammer.
Not his fault. They did some things to him that made him less worthy. But yeah, what do you think? What are your thoughts? And just a reminder, last week's theme was movies with plot twists. So we'll see what we think about that as well. But in the meantime.
So I was intrigued. I was definitely intrigued by the plot line of the movie. I wasn't as in love with it as I was with the Candyman. Like it just didn't seem like it was as well made of a movie. Like I wasn't intrigued by the music or cinematography or anything like that. But it was entertaining. The twist. So I was from the very beginning, I was thinking like, what is the twist? What's the twist going to be? And I remember this movie when it came out. What was it, 2011? I remember people talking about it and talking about how it was different, how it was twisty. It was not as twisty as I would have thought. Well, the twist was interesting, but they come out with the twist from the very beginning. So,
from the beginning, from the synopsis. Remember, it was like it came out in the synopsis. The scientists are in the background doing, and we're like, oh, is that the twist?
That's the twist.
And maybe it wasn't the twist, right? Maybe the twist was why they were doing it. Like maybe that was a twist, right?
Yeah, like once you learn what is happening, once you learn what the ritual is and the different like archetypes of the characters, like that, I guess that could be. But I was thinking, we'll put it this way. Zach, my partner, we watched the movie together, and he had seen it when it came out like 10 years ago. And he thought, from his memory, we didn't learn about the scientists until the end.
Yeah. And even when I read the synopsis, I saw it one time.
Yeah.
Very little memory of it. Didn't really stick in my head as like, oh, I'm going to watch this movie every year for the rest of my life because it's my favorite, right? Didn't really have a big memory of an impression, but I definitely didn't expect that to be right at the beginning. It's like, oh, well then, yeah.
But it was a fun discovery, learning like what was happening, who's pulling the strings. You know, from the beginning, I felt like there was some connection here to hell. I was like, is this like Satan's operation? At first,
I definitely thought when they were talking about down below, like they definitely made you feel like that it was the devil. And at one point they were like, oh, something from up above. And it was really just, I guess, the guy who was like messing with the electrical circuits.
Right. I was like, heaven? Is heaven doing something now?
Yeah, it was, and maybe that was a twist, right? The twist was, oh, there's these ancient beings that are below, and if they don't do this ritual, then they will come back and the world will be destroyed, which is a little confusing.
Yeah,
because if they had walked the earth before, who like put them to sleep and then decided that this ritual? I mean, obviously rituals, right? Okay, so we don't really know how origins of that.
Yeah,
the big question I had.
Go ahead. What's your question?
One of the big questions I had was who built that place?
Yes.
Who captured all these horrific beings that are from who knows where? Did they create them? Some of them are, no idea.
Was this the idea of the ancient ones who were trapped below? Where they like, here, use these nightmares instead of us? Like, it doesn't make it, like, and when did this originate? How long has this operation been going on?
Well, from ancient times. But when they put their big ass hand back down in the earth and fell asleep, I guess.
Yeah. Interesting. But that's
Yeah.
funny that you asked that because and this is, I think, a defense mechanism when I watch scary movies, is I'm
Right.
constantly looking for plot holes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's not my approach when I watch other genres like
Right.
Marvel. I'm not like, wait a minute, how did this? Why don't they just give the Captain America serum to everybody and everybody can
Right.
just turn into super? Like, I
Yeah,
mean,
you
I'm
believe
sure,
it when it's superheroes, but
yeah, because I want to believe it. But then in these
Yeah.
movies, I'm like, that would never happen, which actually is something that I appreciated about this movie. So after we watched it, I was pretty intrigued because it was a horror movie, but it was sort of a combination of other genres. There was comedy in there. It
Yep.
was kind of sci-fi, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So I went down this
Yeah.
rabbit hole of trying to learn about where this movie came from, and that was, I think, one of the intents behind the movie is to not mock horror movies, but to like point out. It's like they were pointing out that people don't do the things that you see them doing in horror movies. They took a couple
Yeah.
things and they kind of flipped them on their head, and I think that those will be some things that we should talk about in this episode.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like, and so hopefully everyone listening watched it, right? So you had your 5 main characters, right? You had Kurt, played by Thor. You had his girlfriend Jules, Marty, the token stoner. Which, by the way, I don't know how that man affords to smoke the amount of weed that he was smoking in that movie, because not one scene went by that he was not. Like, how is it even possible? Don't know. Anyway, I'm not a scientist, but
he must be pretty smart because he's the only one who survived and figured things out until the end.
Yeah,
So,
because he could see through it. And then anyway, you had the Virgin, and then you had Holden. The actor
is
who
that the
played
smart
him
guy?
was from the Scholar. The Scholar was his.
Okay.
The one that was making out with the
Poor guy just got stabbed through the neck while he's just driving down the road. Like, he didn't even
just
get
driving
to
down the road.
run from the zombie or anything. Just right. And
Shelley was excited to find out, my wife, that he's from Grey's, a Grey's Anatomy character was in. I've never seen Grey's Anatomy, but she's seen all the seasons 12 times over.
Well, let me ask you this: like, were you scared? Like, how scary did you find it?
Okay, so did I find it scary?
Yeah, how scared did you get?
So it's interesting. I don't. Before I answer your question, one thing that dawned on me, speaking of being kind of like nitpicky and a disbeliever, is that I think that when I normally watch scary movies, I don't really think about it. I'll sit and I'll watch it. I'll enjoy it. Maybe it's cheesy, maybe it's not. But I found just in these couple of iterations of us doing this that I sit there with my pen and pad because I want to be able to take notes. I don't, so I can talk about it on the air. But I'm almost too nitpicky. And then once I get into it, I loosen up a little bit. But like this time, I'm like writing down notes, and so for instance, it starts out kind of classic with the gratuitous girl in her underwear scene. And
oh my gosh.
Oh, here we go.
Talk about this. Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay. Here we go. Cheesy. And, which had to be like cheesy callback, or maybe they just did it because that's what, they do it for, to get attention, I guess. She's like in front of an open window in her underwear, and then everyone in the world walks in and she just happens to forget that she's not wearing pants. No one notices. No one looks down. No one does anything. And then Thor, I'll call him that for the rest of the episode, is at the very end says, "Oh, by the way, you're not wearing pants." And it's like, oh my God. Oh, here we go.
So cheesy. Although I did think so I had the same thought when we pan into her bedroom window, and I have some thoughts here that I really want to talk about this movie and gender. But let me pause. Let me park that for a second. We'll come back to it. But we see that, and then the whole scene happens, and I forgot that she was in her underwear. Like because they never.
Oh, you forgot.
Panned down. Yeah, I just completely forgot. Which, like, does that make me stupid?
Which maybe.
I don't know.
Oh, but maybe that's why they did it.
It was funny. I was like, this is so cheesy, but it did make me laugh. And that is
funny.
That was another point that I had about the movie is I laughed quite a bit. There was some really funny bits in there.
I think I only chuckled like one time.
The speakerphone scene I thought was pretty funny.
What was the speakerphone scene?
So it was, I think Mordecai was his name. I can't believe I remember that. But like the asshole where they stopped to get gas.
Yeah.
Paused to say they've made it to the cabin. The murder cabin.
Oh, the speakerphone, right?
Yes. And
Am I on speakerphone?
Yes. Yes.
No.
And they're like, no. And then he's like, okay, you're off speakerphone now. And then, whatever. Everyone's seen the movie. It was hilarious. There were some other funny bits too. The whole merman thing I thought was so
Yeah, the
stupid, but
merman
it
thing
made me
was what
laugh.
made me chuckle. And so Bradley Whitford, right, who played he played the guy with the merman. Also, he's from The West Wing. He's one of the commanders in Handmaid's Tale.
Handmaid's Tale, yes.
But like he's always witty in every role he plays that I've seen him in, even Handmaid's Tale, which is generally pretty dark, but he always has that wit about him. That's him.
Well, let me ask you this.
I think
was he like more of an established cast member compared to the rest of the the young crowd who was in the cabin? I don't know. I was just curious.
Not more than Chris. I mean, The West Wing came out a long time ago.
Yeah. Anyway, irrelevant point. What were we saying though about it being funny?
First of all, again, as I'm being critical in the beginning of the movie, and it was kind of cheesy and campy at the beginning. Who drives an RV to go stay in a cabin? Yeah. Like, where did these people get this RV? And they're living in the city, and now they have this big ass RV just so they can park it in front of a cabin.
Go stay in a cabin, and then they never went back in the RV for.
And they never went back in the RV. They brought a dirt bike that only became useful.
Where was the dirt bike?
It was on the back of the RV. I saw it at the beginning. I was like, oh, dirt bike. But then they go to a cabin and
one dirt bike.
One dirt bike.
People.
One dirt bike, 5 people, and it's only useful when he decides to cross the thing and run into the weird wall.
Yeah, good thing they had that dirt bike, I guess. Yeah. What else were you critical about? What stopped you in your tracks?
So it was mostly everything at the beginning. Gratuitous butt shot. RV. I'm like, why is there an RV? Then they get there and it's like, oh, creepy tiny cabin. But once they kind of got there, and maybe that's because you knew what was going on and you knew there were scientists and you're just like, what is going on? That was one of the first things. As soon as you saw the scientists and everything was happening, but then it was also being campy weird, I was like, what is happening? Like from the beginning of the movie, I'm like, what is even going on here? Which is probably the point, because you know that there's so many different things going on. Like, what they're going to go through. And then and then the other thing, then they get to the abandoned gas station that's creepy that hopefully has gas, which today we would just look at a map on our phone and say, well, where's the gas station at? Yeah. But they're driving into this cabin that they've never been to, which means they didn't know the gas station was there, but they needed it for their giant RV that's a gas guzzler. And then there's no one there. And then they pay the guy cash and they get gas and they get mad and they drive away. All that was a little bit cheesy, but not uncommon for an older campy scary movie. I think once I got to the cabin and things started happening, it was a little bit more. At that point I started going with the flow and started watching it. The makeout scene with the wolf was disgusting, but
I was like, and I thought something was going to come of that. There was no point to that. I was like, is the wolf going to come alive? Is the wolf's tongue going to move? Is it something going to happen because she made out with the wolf?
Yeah, the dead tongue. She's just like dead tongue making out. It was
I was gross. Like, this is so stupid. What adults in 2023 are going to be like, oh, I dare you to go hang out with that wolf? And wolf. I can't pronounce the word wolf. Wolf. And then all their friends are just going to watch while she does it hardcore for 90 seconds.
But you do got to remind yourself, right, that they're putting gases and drugs into the air to make them do stuff that's weird, right? To lower their inhibitions.
They did say that, yeah.
And so I guess that was their way of having them do weird, odd things that seemed, and then all of a sudden, Thor got super masculine and they're like, that's not his style, right? Because again, they're feeding them these gases and these, whatever drugs to make them act certain ways. But also it's weird because they go down into the cellar and then they basically choose their fate. And they choose how they're going to die, but they're all already kind of high on whatever drugs they fed them. So how much of it is a choice? There's obviously some plot holes that could be found, and me being hypercritical. I kind of want to see alternate versions where it was something that wasn't just zombies, because there were a lot of creatures that could have been really interesting.
Yes.
And the zombies are the least interesting.
Actually, okay, so I had that same thought. Once we learned in the story that they had all these different ways of choosing whatever creature was going to come in them, and they chose the zombies. I thought the twist was going to be that they fight off the zombies, and then there's another wave of something else, and then they do something else in the house, and they choose another thing. I thought it was going to be continuous, like all your nightmares, or everybody was going to get a
that'd be
different
interesting.
monster or something
We
like
should
that.
make that movie.
There we go. Cabin in the Woods 2, Part 2. 2 cabins in the woods. I mean, we got to see all the monsters in the end. Like that was, the big like, okay, the monsters are going after the people who are architecting this whole ritual thing. And that's kind of where it flipped it on its head or whatever. But we also, I think there's a lot that I was interested in talking about regarding gender. So I was, after the movie ended, I turned to Zach and I was like, that movie felt dated, but not because of like the technology or clothing styles or references or anything like that. It felt dated because of the way that like the gratuitous girl in her underwear in her bedroom in the beginning, and the whole like, the whole like mirror thing, and he doesn't want to look at her getting undressed, like the whole showing her boobies and everything. It took me back to like middle school.
Right.
I was like, this feels like it's pandering to a certain male audience, and I think that the way that it treated gender and like the whole like sex scene in the woods and everything, she's like taking her clothes off, and I'm like, why isn't Chris Hemsworth taking his clothes off? Why don't I feel like that would make this just as interesting.
Yeah.
And he's fully clothed. What the hell? So there was elements of that just felt, it made me think like, oh, this movie feels dated, because I think we've we've like evolved a little bit, as not to make this like political or cultural, but like that the treatment of gender in the movie made me think like, okay, this was like 10, 15 years ago that this came out.
Well, and what I'll say, and this is probably true across all genres, but particularly in horror, this isn't going to be the last movie you feel that way. 80s horror flicks, like the gratuitous underwear scene, not surprised. For me, I'm like, oh, it's a horror movie that they're trying to play on like classic old stuff. And so old 80s slasher films, I say 80s, but whether it be 80s or not, guy and girl are going to be having sex and probably die right afterwards, and she's probably the only one with no shirt on, right? Or I'm making stuff up, but I think you'll kind of find that to be not uncommon, which is interesting, because I guess we'll kind of see, depending on the movie, like the original Candyman, you don't really find that, but there's a certain kind of older movie where that was just kind of a thing, just like an old classic, for lack of better words, horror movies, some girl's running somewhere and then she falls down because she doesn't know. She trips on the air, and part of that though becomes the campiness of it. But like, of course she fell down. It's kind of that same thing of course she's walking in the basement. Why is she doing that? But I think I'll be curious to see, maybe take a note of that, because it won't be the last time that we see it for sure. Now it depends. That's obviously going to be in older movies, but you're right. That's actually, it's an interesting threshold, right? That was 2011, which wasn't that long ago, but it was notably different. It was something that was worth noting in this movie.
Are you familiar with the trope of the final girl in horror movies?
No.
So this was me like Wikipediaing Cabin in the Woods and then reading about, and I'm very careful not to read spoilers from other movies, but I am curious to read about the movie and how it was received. So there's this idea, the final girl, and it's kind of what that ritual was all about. The virgin who dies last, if she dies, she's like the last one to be sacrificed, is the final girl. So that was what's her face? That was the character from the movie. But this is interesting. Okay, this is from Wikipedia. The original meaning of final girl, as described by Clover, I'll have to go get her first name, in 1992. This is someone who studied slasher films from the 1970s and 80s, which you just mentioned, as the golden era of the genre. She defined the final girl as a woman who is the sole survivor of the group of people, usually youths, who are chased by a villain and who gets a final confrontation with the villain, whether she kills him herself or she is saved at the last minute by someone else. That's what we saw, right?
Yep.
And who has such a privilege because of her implied moral superiority. For example, she's the only one who refuses sex, drugs, or other such behaviors, unlike her friends. And I was like, what? That's everything that just happened in this movie.
Yeah, they definitely played on that. It's interesting that, and I've never heard that, but it makes sense. I'll be curious. I'll be curious on how many movies we see where we'll be able to pull some of these themes out.
Yeah. Although
they definitely played that one on this one.
another nod to the comedy was at the end when Sigourney Weaver was
which came
explaining.
out of nowhere. Sigourney Weaver, who like classic sci-fi horror, from Alien and Aliens. I don't know if you've seen them; they're on the list. But yeah, Sigourney Weaver shows up out of nowhere, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, she was in the movie for like 2 seconds. Yeah,
yeah. But what were we saying?
Well, I wonder if they chose her because of her connection to some of those other movies.
Maybe. I mean, she's a prominent, strong female character in what was, I don't know the year, but when Alien and Aliens came out, right? Like it's got to be one of the first like prominent, strong female led movies where she just beats the shit out of aliens.
Is she the final
and doesn't
girl?
give a shit.
Well, you know what? Don't spoil it because I haven't seen them.
Yeah, but well, first of all, I won't spoil it, but it is not the standard classic horror movie trope.
Got it.
Definitely alien related, definitely sci-fi horror, and this is not really sci-fi horror, even though they're scientists, right?
Yeah. But I was gonna say, she comes out and she's explaining the whole ritual, and she says something about the virgin dying last, and that character, I don't remember the character's name, she goes, "Virgin?" And Sigourney goes, "We take what we can get," or whatever the line was.
That was their way of modernizing it. And she's like, "But I'm not a virgin." We're like, well, no one's a virgin these days.
We do what we can with what we have.
You're close enough. Yeah.
I just thought that was really funny.
I was wondering if you felt this way, but you didn't mention it. So I felt that there was a notable turning point in the movie from the moment they got in the elevator and went down. So everything up to that point, maybe it was like you could divide this movie into thirds. Like the first third is the opening that kind of has that callback to older classic horror movies where it's just kind of cheesy.
Think it's just going to be the same as every other horror movie you've seen.
And you can poke holes in it if you're trying to take notes like I was. And then it shifts into this like weird, they're scientists, you don't really know what's going on. But, everyone, just kind of a weird middle section. And then they get down into the basement and it turns into Bloodfest. And I will say, of the three different parts of the movie, that was my favorite. Not because all the scientists were getting what came to them. I don't even know. I'm not even a big gore fan but it's not that it's gory. It's that it's like unbelievably gory and there are blood up and down the walls. And so my favorite part of the movie was them at the end, soaked in blood, chilling, knowing they won, but also knowing the world was about to be destroyed.
Yeah.
And he lights one up and then she takes a puff and they're just like, fuck it. This is it. I don't know what it is, but like there's something about that like that's, and I think there's more movies I've seen that like end where everything's just coated in blood, but in a unbelievable sense, in a humorous way, right? In something that's just completely unrealistic. Like she's been beat to hell by that big zombie dude. Like they've just been destroyed and they're just chilling and they're surprised that, I mean, they should be bleeding everywhere, but they're not, or at least, that we can tell. And then that was like, but that turning point at the end, all the monsters, everything's getting slaughtered. Everyone's dying. There's blood everywhere. And
yeah,
I really wanted to try to go scene by scene and pick out all the monsters. But there were too many. So I know that you did the research, but I did pull up a little bit from the fandom page because, it's got a pretty big fan following for Cabin in the Woods. Just because of the sheer amount of monsters, there were four major types that of all those monsters listed, right? So there were supernatural, psychopaths, folkloric creatures, and common phobias. But then they had smaller types. There were undead humans, demons, extraterrestrials, giant animals. So there's like that big weird scorpion thing with the saw. There was the doctors that were creepy, that were cutting their patient. There was a killer clown that honestly wasn't that creepy to me. I've seen way creepier clowns. It was like it ran the gamut, which also goes back to, and they picked zombies, but it's fine. It's fine. I feel like maybe I've just seen too many zombie shows, so I just don't have as much appreciation for it.
Well, like I said, I thought that at that point in the movie when all the monsters are coming out, at that point I thought it was kind of fun. Like the suspense was gone. I wasn't, I wasn't on the edge of my seat, like, oh, what's going to happen? Something's going to jump out and scare me. At that point, it was just like a free for all, and it was kind of fun to see all the different things. That's interesting.
And that disgusting merman.
And that disgusting merman. They could have had a hot fucking merman, and they were like, no, we're going to make this blob of a disgusting. That actually was pretty funny.
The blood shooting out his back. Yeah, and again, the comic relief, right? He's just like, "Oh man," or whatever he said, because he finally got to see a merman. He was so disappointed.
And that's what took him out.
First of all, if that merman was the one they summoned, how would he have got to them on land? Anyway, I'm not gonna.
Yeah, there's a lot of plot holes.
He could have crawled. He would have crawled up. It's fine. It's fine.
It's
suspension of disbelief. I'm the scary movie lover that's sitting here trying to like point out plot holes when it's an identifiable fact that there will be a ton of plot holes in a lot of the movies we watch. So I just need to stop. But anyway.
So one thing that I thought was interesting is actually, did he direct this or did he just produce it? I need to take better notes here, but Joss Whedon. He wrote it. He co-wrote it and produced it. I just read that. And I was like, that name is so familiar. What do we know about Joss Whedon? He has done several of the Marvel movies. He did the first Avengers, the second Avengers. He did Justice League on the DC side. He co-wrote Toy Story, for which he won an Academy Award. Yeah, I was like, this guy's been all over the place.
He has been. I don't think. I think I first knew his name from Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
So that was kind of interesting. Just
Marvel connections every week.
Connections everywhere. Yeah,
that's our through point of every episode is what Marvel connections can Sam make.
So here's what
don't pick a Chris Hemsworth movie.
Every movie that we watch from now on has to have a Marvel superhero in their early form.
No, you need to find the Marvel superhero. You just have to look for it. Surely there's a Marvel connection. So if you pick a movie without a superhero in it that doesn't blatantly have someone who directed it, like that's easy to find, you have to figure out like how many degrees of separation is it from Marvel in all your spare time.
Quickly devolving from like horror movie to how many degrees of separation can we get to?
Hey,
Marvel.
If that's what it takes to keep you watching scary movies, I'm down.
We'll do it. That's work. Yes. Okay. So here's what Joss had to say about the movie. It says he described the film in an attempt to revitalize the horror genre. He calls it a loving hate letter to the genre. Here's what he said. It's a serious critique of what we love and what we don't about horror movies. I love being scared. I love that mixture of thrill, of horror, that objectification or identification thing of wanting definitely for the people to be all right, but at the same time, hoping they'll go somewhere dark and face something awful. The things I don't like are kids acting like idiots, the devolution of the horror movie into torture porn. This was a few years after Saw came out, by the way, which was on the list for last week, and into a long series of sadistic comeuppance. Drew and I both felt that the pendulum had swung a little too far in that direction. So it sounds like they're like trying to reclaim the genre as it's not just gore and this torture porn. It's gonna be interesting and thoughtful and comedic even. And so I thought that was interesting. It's a love-hate letter for the genre.
That's interesting. It's interesting. I think if I were going to redo this movie, or if I could tweak it and make it like a really good representation of what they're saying, I think you start the movie out very similarly. Don't show the scientists. They do the thing. I want to fully believe they're going to go to a cabin and I don't know what's happening.
Yes.
And it's going to be a little cheesy. I'm like, okay, cheesy and campy. Cool. I can appreciate that. They get in the RV. Maybe they just get in a truck. I don't know. Maybe not an RV. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I give up on the RV thing. Who affords an RV when they're... Anyway, they drive to the cabin. They go to the abandoned gas station. Sure. Got it. Yep. Campy. Little funny. Cool. They walk away. He gets on the phone. You don't know who's on the other end. And he's like,
something's up.
The house. Right.
You just don't know what. Yeah.
And I feel like I've seen that in a movie. I could probably, I don't know what, but I know I've seen that in a movie. They pass a gas station and the creepy guy makes a phone call. Oh, now they're going to the thing. They go through the tunnel. And then maybe, anyway, so then they get into the cabin and all that. And then at some point, and I don't know, I'm not a movie writer, director, producer, but then at some point it kind of shifts. And then you realize that there's these scientists and they're like, what's going on? There's this thing going on. Yes. And then they make it feel like it's all this weird scientific experiment. And you're like, oh, is the government running this? What's going on? And then, so now you've plot twisted one. And then a third of the way through, they get in the elevator, they go down. And then you realize that it's not just the government, it's not scientific experimentation. There's some sort of weird, like, devilish ancient creature. And I just feel like there could have been, in the perfect world where I'm creating movies and know what I'm doing and not just being judgmental over a movie that came out 12 years ago. I think that it could have been executed a little bit differently. Maybe it would have been less fun. But I feel like I would have walked away and been like, wow, from 1 minute to the next, I didn't know it was happening, which is probably also true, but
yeah, no, I agree with you there. I think I was expecting the twist to be twistier and not exactly the way that you described it.
yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. What were there was the 5 different like character archetypes, right? The whore, which, by the way, again, I did not like that. It really grinded my gears. Obviously, when the shitty gas station guy calls her a whore, I'm like, yeah, fuck you, you old grumpy man. But then that was like that was the whole archetype. Yeah, I was like, okay, we're gonna kill the whore first. I was like, like he was having sex with her too. Like he could be the whore. Why do we have to make it like the blonde chick?
You're right.
So okay, so we have the whore, we have the athlete or whatever, we had the scholar, we had the fool, and we had the virgin.
Right.
So here's a thought experiment. When we write and release Cabin in the Woods 2, or 2 Cabins in the Woods, or whatever it is, and we improve the twist that you just described. What is it?
2 cabins, 1 wood.
2 cabins, 1 wood.
That's not going to call it that.
No, I like where this is heading. So how do we rewrite the archetypes? What would be this a thought experiment? If we were to create 5 different character types that have to get murdered, what could they be?
Oh goodness!
In the new version,
I don't know if I can come up with this on the spot, but probably.
Like, I'll throw one out there because I'll play this role. We need the token gay.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay,
that's fair.
So we have like token gay.
Token gay, probably like a burly athletic woman.
Okay,
all
right.
Like, so you probably want to do a spin off of the old, but modernized, right?
Modernized,
so
right.
Like, the token gay would replace.
I don't
know.
I guess it depends on which. You could do all 5 archetypes as gay characters. You could have like the twink, the jock, the bear, the what am I missing? I don't know. And like, who's gonna survive the longest?
I mean, that's
there we
true.
have it. But also, all the monsters would have to be different. Instead of like zombies and giant spiders, it would have to be like I don't even know what.
That's true. I have no clue.
Yeah.
Okay, so final thoughts. Cabin in the Woods. I didn't answer your question ever, but I didn't find it to be that scary. Didn't really have me on the edge of my seats. The zombies honestly didn't scare me a lot. But what about you? Final thoughts. Was it scary? Was it not scary? How's it rate on 1? So you rated last week as a 7, I think.
Yeah.
So what do you rate this one?
I would say this is like a 3 or a 2, maybe. There was a couple jump scares that got me, but I wasn't psychologically scared. I wasn't like immersed and freaked out or worried for my own safety. I was just like, oh, that scared me. And then we moved on.
There was too much going on to be scared, I felt like.
Yeah. I mean, in this, as when we're watching scary movies, I'm putting myself into the minds like of the characters. Like, what would I do if this? But this is just so fantastical that it's hard to get into it. You know what I mean? Or they're doing things that I'm like, well, I would never do that. So I would, I didn't feel sucked in. Whereas with Candyman, I'm thinking like, I am not about to go into the bathroom and look in the mirror and say his name. I'm not going to do it. I could, but I'm not going to. Yeah. So yeah, I would say this is pretty low on the scale of how scary.
Okay, I agree. Yeah, I don't think it was super scary.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know. So then finally...
I would say I was intrigued. It was a fun movie.
Would you recommend it to folks that are like you and don't like scary movies?
I think this is also a good one for people who don't like scary movies to start with, because the scary bar is low. The scary bar is low.
Yeah.
And it gives you some things to laugh at. It gives you some things to like have fun with, and that makes it a good intro into scary. It wasn't too gory. There wasn't anything I had to like close my eyes or look away from the screen.
True.
So yeah, would recommend.
Okay.
I mean, I would say out there.
I would say, for you scary movie lovers, watch it once. and then watch it again 12 years later when you do a podcast. That's my recommendation. It's not going on my top 10, but it was worth a watch. It was a good conversation piece.
Yeah.
So there you go, Cabin in the Woods, box checked for this episode. So now it's my favorite part of the episode. Well, maybe my third favorite part is we get to talk about next week. So I hope you're ready.
I am so ready. I look forward to this every week. I'm like, what's he gonna come up with?
Yeah, I think my favorite part definitely is the coming up with the themes, because let me tell you, I was struggling to figure out how to get different movies in front of you and make it interesting. So the theme for this next week, which we've actually talked about quite a few times today, is sci-fi horror.
Oh, here we go.
We're gonna do sci-fi horror movies.
All right.
I wanted that early in the season because you saw Signs and you talked about it, and you talked about that effect. You remember it. Now these movies, all sci-fi horror, all relatively new. So you can't say I want to pick an older movie to jump in, because they're just all new. What I will say, I have not seen any of them. 2 of them I've heard of. 1 of them I had not, but I watched the trailer and I was like, that seems weird. Like if you don't pick it, I may just watch it anyway. But first movie is the movie Megan. It's actually spelled M3GAN.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, you probably heard of it, right?
Yes.
There's probably like memes and reels or something about it.
I think Megan was really popular with the gays, and I don't know why.
Because you guys like big, weird, creepy dolls. Is that?
Yeah, I guess so. We'll
that
find
makes
out.
sense.
Well, if we choose it,
that makes sense. Zach is basically a big, weird, creepy doll. So I hope he's listening. So Megan came out in 2022, starring Allison Williams, Violet McGraw, and Ronnie Chang. Here's the synopsis. Megan is a marvel of artificial intelligence, a lifelike doll that's programmed to be a child's greatest companion and a parent's greatest ally. Designed by Gemma, a brilliant roboticist, Megan can listen, watch, and learn as it plays the role of a friend and teacher.
Okay, wait. Are there people in the world whose job it is to make robots and they call themselves roboticists?
Roboticist. Okay. Which is different than when you need a robot to help you and you get a robot assist. Yeah.
Oh, got it. Different. Okay.
When Gemma becomes the unexpected caretaker of her 8-year-old niece, she decides to give the girl a Megan prototype, a decision that leads to unimaginable consequences. This story of joy and a little girl's best friend that's a giant creepy doll will leave you laughing and crying for days. That's it.
Okay. So I've seen the trailers and I've seen the reels.
I haven't even
and
seen the trailer.
Oh man. Well, yeah, this is one where I've seen like a lot of like memes and reels and stuff on social media, because she does this creepy little dance. People have copied it.
I've seen some of that.
Yeah, I don't know why she has become like associated with the gays. I don't know why she's a gay icon. Maybe because she's just a fabulous little murdering doll. But this makes me think of a movie that was about robots. I want to say it was iRobot.
Oh, that's really original.
Was that it?
This makes me think of a movie about robots. Oh.
It is a movie about robots.
Well.
Okay, it's late. Okay. So seeing the little robot, she's freaky. She's kind of freaky looking. The idea of something like turning on you that you can't control, and it being like a little, especially that it's a child, right? It's not like an adult robot. It's a fucking child robot doing who knows what. And yeah, that's kind of freaky.
Okay.
I don't even know how to spin this to make it sound sweet. It just sounds like a little demon robot that people enjoy.
Sometimes children are lonely, and you have to give them a demon robot.
You got to give them a demon robot. Yeah, I could have used a demon robot when I was that age. You know,
couldn't we all? And we would have turned out so much better.
I never would have been bullied on the playground. Maybe that's why the gays are intrigued by Megan. If I could have brought one with me to recess, then could have taught those bullies some lessons.
Yeah.
Okay. What's the second movie?
Okay. Yeah. Moving on. So the second movie, which I mapped these out ahead of time, but the second movie is one that you may have heard of, and it's called Nope. Which came out in 2022, starring Daniel Kaluuya, which already we have a Marvel.
There's the Marvel
2
connection
from
yeah.
Black Panther. Keke Palmer, Brandon Perea, and Steve Yeun, which from Walking Dead. So we have another Walking Dead connection as well. But yeah, and written and directed by Jordan Peele.
There he is.
And here is the synopsis. A man and his sister discover something sinister in the skies above their California horse ranch, while the owner of a nearby theme park tries to profit from the mysterious, otherworldly phenomenon. Is it a bird? Is it a plane? Is it Superman? Find out and watch Nope.
I want to know why there's a theme park next to a cattle ranch. Because if you called me up and said,
why isn't there?
We're going to a theme park and it's out by the cattle ranch, I would say nope. I'd be like, nope, not interested.
Not? Hey,
it just seems like it's in the wrong place.
Well, hey, towns with cattle ranches need theme parks too, Sam. Come on.
All right, that's fair.
Maybe that's how the town gets their money, from the cattle and ranch dressing.
So this is interesting. Could it be aliens? Could it be?
I don't know.
We don't know. Okay, I will confess.
Seems like
aliens. Because it is newer, I have seen trailers for this one as well.
Yeah.
I remember there was. I
saw a lot of trailers for it, but I never saw the movie.
Didn't they use like the Wiggly Man from the car lots?
They did.
What are those called?
In the trailer. The Wiggly Man.
The Wiggly Man, yeah.
Mr. Wind Wiggly, I think is what they call him.
I want to say at the movie theater, they had one of those little Wiggly Mans attached to like a movie poster setup.
Oh,
you know
that'd
those
be
like
funny.
Fancy setups that they have in the like lobbies of movie theaters? I think they had, the displays. I think they had. I could be making that up, but
you could be. But you do a very good impression of a Wiggly Man.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, if we pick this movie, I'm gonna have to just do the Wiggly Man the entire time.
The whole time.
Talking about
the whole time. Yeah.
Okay. I am very curious because it's another Jordan Peele.
Because it's Jordan Peele. Yeah.
And I was like, drawn into Candyman and was so that's a good contender. This is already gonna be a really tough choice.
It's gonna be a tough choice. This third one I feel like is a sleeper. This one I'd never heard of. And then I watched the trailer and I was like, what in the living hell? I'm putting this on the list. So the third movie, which maybe you've heard of, it's called Vivarium. Came out in 2019 and it stars Imogen Poots and Jesse Eisenberg. Hoping to find the perfect place to live, a couple travel to a suburban neighborhood in which all the houses look identical. But when they try to leave the labyrinth-like development, each road mysteriously takes them back to where they began. Spoiler alert, they live in a cul-de-sac. No, I'm just kidding. That's not part of it. That is a pretty short synopsis though, and I feel like it doesn't actually say anything.
Oh, that's it? That's the whole thing?
That's it. The cul-de-sac part, not part of it.
Not gonna lie, a neighborhood where every house looks exactly the same was already pretty terrifying. No offense if that's where you live, but
that's true.
It's just suburban life.
Yeah, terror. but every house looks the same.
And they can't
when they try to leave, they end up back where they started. Yeah. I think if you watched the trailer, you'd be like, what in the hell is going on?
What about the trailer?
The synopsis does not give you... What about the trailer?
Intrigued you. Yeah.
Okay. So they go to this house in a suburban neighborhood where all the houses look the same.
Good start.
And then when they try to leave, they end up back at the house.
Okay, so you're basically just telling me the synopsis again.
I know, but I did that from memory. I'm just impressed with myself. No, so I'll give you a little bit from the trailer. Okay. Because you have seen the trailers of the other two, I feel like I can give a little away.
Okay.
So for instance, there's no one in any of their houses in any of the other houses in the neighborhood. Like they're all empty. They're in this giant suburban development and seemingly the only people in this house. And then some things happen. And then, like, they're going a little crazy. One day, like, a baby shows up in a box. And now they're there with this baby that they're raising. I think at one point they burn the house down and they try to drive away and come back and the house is back. It's something weird's going on.
Okay.
I feel like you've been to that house probably for dinner?
Yeah, I've been to this house. No, I've been to a town. Zach and I went to this town. We were on this road trip through Northern California up into Oregon. And we went to this town. I can't remember what it was called.
Oregon's not Northern California.
Northern California and Oregon.
Oh, and Oregon. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, geography.
The state of Oregon that's in California.
Right.
No, we went to this town. I'm gonna have to look up what it was called because it was like out of the way on the coast, like way out of the way, like very isolated town. And it felt there were people who lived there because we saw them, but it felt like not real. It felt like a not real town. That there was some of the houses we were like, that one looks empty. Like you could count on two hands the number of like houses that were in this little tiny town, and there's like one restaurant and one cafe. It felt fake, and there was like a road that essentially went around the entire town, and it was a loop. The whole town was like a loop.
Was Jesse Eisenberg there? Were there babies in boxes?
Yes.
I need to know.
They were just driving around.
Oh my
they couldn't figure out how to get out.
That's my hometown. That's where I grew up, in Oregon.
Well, no, I think it was still in California. I'll look it up. Although, if anyone...
Now I'm confused on what state it was in, but it's fine.
It was... The road trip was to Oregon through Northern California.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not my hometown.
It was just a weird town. It felt creepy. It gave us creepy vibes. We were like, let's just get something to eat and get out of here, because I feel like we're going to get kidnapped.
Well, you didn't.
But we did it. We made it. We made it out.
Unless you're not the real Sam.
Okay, so we got to pick a movie. All right.
We being you. I know which one I pick.
Okay, so this is really tough. So far we haven't gotten anything that's like super scary. Like I can't hardly handle it.
That's true. That's true.
Megan feels like it would be, I mean, based on the social media reaction, it feels like it's fun. It feels like a fun movie. Maybe
it might
that's
be
just the way people are playing with it.
Creepy doll movies, though, man. Like, I don't know. Creepy doll movies. I think my mom saw it, and I don't think she said anything particularly about it being like super scary, but you know, she's also not sensitive to scary movies.
Oh yeah. Has
Nope
she seen
doesn't
Nope?
seem super scary either. She hasn't seen it that I know of. Nope doesn't also seem like super scary. Also, sci-fi horror in general to me doesn't feel super scary. I think sci-fi horror generally more. I mean, I guess it can be. I can think of movies.
Nope reminds me of that movie, Arrival. You ever seen that movie?
Long time ago, yeah.
Just because there was aliens, there was thing. I mean, and I loved that movie. We do not need to go down that rabbit hole right now. But that's the vibe that I get when I see the Nope trailer. Is because it's like there's something, but we don't know what it is.
Yeah, Nope. Actually, it reminds me a lot. It reminds me of a movie that I saw a few years back, where everyone was in this town, and there was something suspicious going on, but people would always say yes to everything, and it was called Yup.
Okay.
Just kidding. I made that up.
That also sounds like a horror movie. Like you have to say yes to everything you get invited to go do.
That is horrific.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then the last one, what was the last one called?
Vivarium. Not a memorable name, but
Vivarium. Yeah, I'm not buying it. I'm curious, and I think I'm not going to choose that one this week, but I would be curious to like watch a trailer and like keep it on the backlog, and maybe we revisit it. But between Megan and Nope, this is the dawn of artificial intelligence. The robots are coming to get us. True. I think we should go watch Megan and get prepared.
Perfect. One last thing.
Mm-hmm.
How do you pronounce it? Because it's Megan with a 3. So is it M3?
Well, I'm pretty sure it's not Mithrigan.
Mithrigan. We're going to watch Mithrigan.
I guess we'll find out when we start the movie.
That's true. So we're doing it. We're watching Megan. I don't know what I thought you would pick. I was a little worried you'd just go Jordan Peele because that's how you feel, but instead you went Megan because that's what I'm
begging for.
What you're begging. Yeah.
We tried.
It is too late for us to record this episode.
We're doing our best.
We're doing our best for getting the rest. So Megan it is.
Megan it is.
Megan it is. Well, that's perfect. So all of our listeners out there that are hopefully still here after an hour of us rambling, if you haven't followed us yet, then click that follow button.
Followed us yet? We're already on episode 2. Surely everyone who's listening is following.
I mean, I hope so. If you haven't followed us yet, do it, and then you can know when episode 3 comes out. It's going to be exciting. Megan, watch it, and then join us. Have some popcorn, or don't. Have a Coca-Cola, have a Pepsi, maybe have some water. But watch Megan, and we'll talk about it next week.
Dun dun dun! We did